All right. So developmental trauma is what I was telling you when we first started, when we talk about child abuse, that I'm going to talk about. So that's trauma in children often manifests outwardly. What that means is that when a child is traumatized, you're going to see it in their behaviors. You're going to see it in the way they interact with other people. You're going to see it in the way they express themselves. They could start having stomach aches. They can start having they might become, start acting out in school. So a child that used to be, it's non-violent becomes really extremely violent. I was talking to my colleague today. Sometimes when you're yelling, that's a trauma response. When you let that, your voice is really elevated, and people are like, calm down. Sometimes it's a trauma response. So when somebody's yelling, there might be trauma associated with that. Then you talk about, so they start acting out. They withdraw. Maya Angelou said when during her trauma, she just stopped talking. She just stopped talking. And so the different ways that children would manifest this. So child abuse and neglect, witnessing violence in the home for a child, are all part of the developmental trauma that I'm talking about. From the word development, developmental trauma includes sexual, physical, psychological abuse, neglect, when you're withholding affection. You never punish a child with those first three things that on Maslow's hierarchy. You do not punish a child by withholding affection. You don't punish a child by telling them they're not going to eat. You can't punish a child by telling them that they can't sleep in your house. So those are things that you don't do, because that by itself is abuse. And we don't want to withhold affection. Then the other thing I want to talk about during this is sometimes the child being exposed to violence. Sometimes it might not even be in the home, as if it's not like the mother or the father are fighting or whatever is going on in the house. It could be through the television, through social media, where they're exposed to these things. Because see, the thing about the brain is it doesn't know what's real or what's imagined. It doesn't know if something you're getting the you're getting activated by what you're watching, or it's actually happening in the home. Your brain doesn't cannot tell the difference. And so when you take a 2-year-old to watch this violent movie sometimes, or they're just seeing violent images, that child might become activated. And we're going to talk about the brain in the some slides. I think a few more slides we'll look at it. And so these experiences happen during the development of the child, infancy, childhood, adolescence, and it goes on through adulthood. And they're called ACEs. What ACEs is adverse childhood experience. This is one of the most exciting, not exciting like in a good way, but innovative, exciting things that's happened in mental health. What happened is Kaiser here in the United States, with CDC, they combined and they did a longitudinal study. They did a study for 17,000 people with 17,000 participants. And they began, and with this study, they could literally, if you had 3 or more ACEs, so you can they'll give you a survey on things that happen in your childhood, and of adverse experiences in your childhood. They'll say things like, did you experience a fire? Were you ever molested? Or did your parents ever get divorced? There's a checklist of in this ACEs questionnaire, and then they could correlate. There's a relationship between the higher the ACEs you experience during your growing up years, the most likely you're going to experience some difficulty. It could be difficulty learning, it could be depression, they could associate it with even physiological medical issues, heart disease. You could correlate ACEs with maladaptiveness. That's what this study showed us. And so then what happened? Then what do we do with that? So what we then know is that if we can limit, reduce, or completely eliminate ACEs during childhood development, we will actually have well-adjusted adults. So this is really powerful because then we can go into, how we parent. You as an adult then is to get yourself together so you're not activating your children and those kind of things that this particular study shows us. I can't go into all the details of it in this particular class, but it just so you know that this study is out there. You could Google it and it would come up for you.